Welcome everybody. I'm Francis to the second in this 6 webinar series where we're looking at Google Workspace and the new updates. So you've got, again, if you were here last week, you've got myself and Charlie to talk you through today's topic, which is engaging collaborative activities in Google Workspace and using some of the education fundamentals and also the plus standard and teaching and learning features for that. Hi Charlie, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Ben. Great to be here again and looking forward to what we've got ahead of us today. It's a really exciting thing for folks to see and some great demos as well as the updates. So really looking forward to it.
I hope it kind of fits with that description there. Thank you to those people who've sort of showing where they're from. So Rachel, John, Andy, really appreciate you sharing today, and Margaret, where you're accessing from. Seems mostly England represented so far today. So if you are sort of joining us from Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, there we go. So we've got Sterling. Lovely to see everyone kind of joining in. Great stuff. So if you didn't manage to catch the first in this webinar series, you can always jump back and have a look at the overview of all the updates. But let's just start with a little reminder. So the update to Google Workspace for Education is not just in name, but also the new additions is about providing that choice, control and flexibility, whatever your needs may be. So with that in mind, we're going to have a look today at how, from a teaching and learning point of view, you can create collaborative activities. As you may have seen in the last one, the numbers of people using Google for Education around the world is sort of over 170 million. And obviously not just over the last 12 months with the situation that all teachers were put in with distance learning, but a tool that's been used before that and hopefully will continue to be used effectively beyond. And we will obviously look at the new updates and how that's supporting. I didn't mention the Republic of Ireland, so thank you for Elizabeth joining us from Dublin. We got now lots of representation from across the various nations. That's brilliant. Awesome.
Great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Google Workspace editions, just a recap of those if you want a little bit of an idea about what they look like. So we've got the free Google Workspace for Education fundamentals, which if you were using G Suite for free before, it's exactly the same suite of free tools you would expect for collaboration and those learning opportunities on a secure platform. Some of you may have been exploring Enterprise for Education previously. As of around February time, that was split off and you can now get access to these new paid editions. So splitting that Enterprise offering up into Google Workspace for Education Standard. So that's looking at those advanced security and analytics tools. If you do have a particular interest in that, then you definitely want to catch next week's webinar where Charlie's going to be taking a real deep dive into the admin console and some of those particular security features, as well as webinar number 5, where we're going to look at device management. And that's a variety of devices. So the teaching and learning features, so the things through particularly Meet and Classroom, are split off so you can just have that paid edition, those enhanced educator tools, and we're going to spend a bit of time today looking at those. And if you want all of that and a little bit more, then there's Google Workspace for Education Plus, which will bring in with the standard, the teaching and learning, and a few extra little additions as well.
And just to say, Ben, just for folks are coming in and hearing that update about these new editions, I've just popped in to the chat again, just a link to our Q&A doc where you can find some useful links as well, folks. So just you can grab that URL and have a look at that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are interested in the upgrades, then you can reach out to a partner that you're working with and ask them to sort of talk about those upgrades and how you go about getting them. If you're not working with a partner, the feedback form is a great way to get put in touch with a partner, and you'll see the feedback form in that Q&A document that has been posted in the comments, along with the webinar slides from our first webinar, a link to compare these editions in a bit more detail, and also a link for finding the Chromebook for you. And we'll add any additional links that we mention to the Q&A doc. And I can see that we've already got a few questions going in. So thank you very much to those people who are straight into that Q&A doc. I think we're okay in terms of viewers at the moment, that we won't go over the collaboration limit of a Google document. Awesome. So if we look at collaborative activities today, if you're really eagle-eyed, you might notice that there's an extra planet that's appeared from the previous slides, and I'll explain to you why. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at 3 collaboration activities using different tools from across Google Workspace. So first of all, we're going to look at Jamboard. Now, I know that the use of Jamboard has grown quite considerably across the last 12 months as teachers were looking for kind of that digital whiteboard space as they were going into distance learning. So again, just make sure that you're comfortable with that and you've got lots of ideas to take that back into the classroom scenario that everyone's in. Then we're going to look at the idea of using breakout rooms in Google Meet, as well as a bit of collaboration in Jamboard, where you can bring experts into your classroom environment to sort of enhance that learning. And then finally in Google Classroom, we're going to look at how you can set up group collaboration tasks in Google Classroom. I need to say this now, this is very much taken from the amazing trainers at Fried Technology that I saw this from, so it's not entirely my own work. Awesome. So that's where we're heading. Any questions, keep them coming in the comments or add them to the Q&A doc, which you can get out of the comments. And we'll be more than happy to try and answer as many as we can in the time that we've got. Okay, so let's just do a switch into our starting point, which is all the way over here, my Jamboard. So here it is. I've got a Jamboard file that I have created in Google Drive. So I've got this fancy background. Actually, if you look and I click around, there's not much that the children can mess with. So what I did was I created this in a program called Canva. So the background's pretty hard to mess with. The only bit that could possibly be moved by collaborating with students is this bit at the bottom here. So this is currently sitting in my Google Drive, and what I want to use it for is some collaboration with my students, because our topic is Mars, and I would love to start off the collaboration by finding out what they already know about Mars. So what I'll be asking them to do is select the sticky note option on the left-hand side and write in the bits of information that they know, such as Mars is the second smallest planet in our solar system, I believe. If I'm wrong, I'm sure someone will mention it very quickly.
Yeah. Hi, Ben. So I've just got a quick question saying, is Jamboard free?
Good question. Yeah. So Jamboard is entirely free. It comes with the core offering of tools along with Drive and Docs and Classroom. Then it's available through Education Fundamentals for free. It's also available in Android and iOS app for free as well. So no barriers to using it. And as it comes in that core offering, then it's covered by the standard contract clauses as well. So you don't need to get additional permissions to use Jamboard with the students, as you might do for additional tools outside of those core offerings.
Great.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you for that one. Yeah, keep those type of questions coming. They're ones that are very straightforward to answer. So here's my collaborative Jamboard. Now, what I want to do is I want to get this out to my students. I could obviously click on the blue button in the top right and make it visible to anyone. Like for this one is anyone in the domain that I'm in can view. But obviously the easiest way to get it to my students is to go to Google Classroom and assign it there. So here is my Google Classroom. So we're doing exploration. Projects is our classroom. And what I'm going to do is jump into the classwork. And you'll see that in true kind of Blue Peter style, I keep on making that reference when I'm delivering to people outside of the UK, and it falls a bit flat. So it's nice to be delivering where it won't necessarily fall on deaf ears. So I've got a draft assignment here, what you already know about Mars. So let's just go in and edit that assignment and have a look at how I've got that set up. So I've taken advantage of the new rich text formatting options in assignments. So I've got my bullets, my bold, my italicized and my underlined sections to make sure all of my learners are very clear on what I want them to do. So I want them to open the collaborative Jamboard file, which I've already added via Google Drive. So just remembering you can go and add anything from your Google Drive or any other files and add them into your classroom assignments. But at the moment, it's just going to be visible to the students. But obviously, for them to collaborate, I want to make it editable to all of them. So they can all jump in there and add their sticky notes. So they're going to add their sticky notes explaining what they already know about Mars, and use a sticker if you find something you didn't know. So I'm encouraging them to make sure that sorry, give me 2 seconds. Hey Charlie, if you want,
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
so jump in for a second, and
I'm going to jump in a second and just to say, folks. So on the Q&A doc, got a really interesting question. So we've got a question from Claire who asks, and it's really just about Chromebooks, and it says, what's the benefit of the Chrome management license? And so just to give you an update on kind of what the advantage are. If you have the Chrome Education Management upgrade, with that you can manage your Chromebooks. So rather than having a situation where you have a consumer Chromebook that's just like the kind of Chromebook you'd have at home and you'd use at home, where anyone can sign into it with an account and they can add the apps and such that they wish, and the Chrome extensions and so on. With a managed Chromebook, you can whitelist the applications that you want to be deployed. You can specify which Wi-Fi connections it's going to have. You can set up the learning and teaching environment to be the way that you want it. So you can add particular applications, whether that's Chrome extensions or whether that's Android apps to your Chromebook. You can specify which ones are deployed to your Chromebooks when the user signs in. You can lock the Chromebook down to your domain so that it will only work, for example, only for your students. Only your students can sign into it, which is a great advantage of it. And there's a whole raft of different additional things you can do. There's a huge amount you can do with the Chrome upgrade, management upgrade, that will allow you to really manage every single facet of the Chromebook. So I do, if you're going to be deploying Chromebooks at in any kind of education environment, I really, really do recommend that you get that education upgrade to manage your Chromebooks. Grand. Okay. How are you getting on, Ben?
Yeah, we're all back. That was a bit of excitement. I think for some reason my external monitors decided that they just didn't really want to play, and everything gathered together onto one screen. But we're all back, and we can pick up where we left off if that's all right.
Great.
Cool. So back in the task where we were, so I've made it editable to everyone, my Jamboard file, and we're pretty much good to go. It's under my topic of Mars. So without further ado, I'm going to assign it to all of my students. Let's do that now. And assign. Okay, so that's going to be winging its way out. The permissions will change on that Jamboard file so that everyone in my class is able to edit the document at the same time. And therefore, we will have loads of the students flooding into this collaborative document here and grabbing a post-it note and adding their things as we go. Just to show you that in action, let me just switch to a student view that I've got available as well. So here's my student account. Let's just get them into the classroom under classwork. And we'll see what that they can jump into it exactly the same way. You'll notice, of course, that they can only see the things that I've published. I had loads of draft assignments, and they can only see the one that I want them to see. And as you would expect, once they jump into Jamboard, they'll be able to add, at the same time as everyone else, their knowledge of Mars. Charlie, do you have any good Mars facts?
So that's a good question. Do I have any good Mars facts? Only a recent one that I saw the Mars lander with the helicopter thing taking pictures of it. So that's my most recent Mars fact. Bit
Okay, so we
disappointing, I'm
could say
afraid.
Mars is the only planet other than Earth to
That's
have
had powered flight.
helicopters.
Even
There we
better.
go. And you can continue to add these in. And as I said, what I also wanted the students to do was they can take advantage of adding in a little sticker or a shape or an image to indicate the ones that they also kind of didn't necessarily know about as well. So maybe it's just a little dot that they want to put on of like, there's one that I didn't know about, and everyone can kind of jump in and get together on that one. So
Ben,
there's our collaborative. Oh yeah, after you.
just a quick question from our Q&A doc, which is what's the difference between a sticky note and a sticker on Jamboard?
Yeah, so these are our sticky notes. So some people might refer to them as a very prominent 3M brand, but sticky notes is that generic term. And then in terms of stickers, if you are using the Android or iOS app, there's a few extra like little ticks and crosses and stickers that you can add in as well. We've got some shapes. So actually the way that I tend to use stickers in the web version that we're looking at is to take a circle and then just have a lot of those, and then people can go and allocate a sticker to the ones that they think, oh, I didn't know that. And we can kind of really focus in on the ones that people were quite interested about. So that's my version of a sticker, it's fair to say, is adding a circle in.
Yeah.
Cool. So that collaboration has taken place in Jamboard, and what I can do now is jump back into the classroom and think about my next steps now that I've learnt what the students are aware of in terms of Mars. Now, of course, as educators, we can't all be absolute experts in every single topic. So one of the things that you might want to do is bring in an outside expert to talk to your class. So to do this, many of you are probably familiar with creating a Google Meet through your Google Classroom. So this is the process that many teachers have been using throughout the process of distance learning to engage with their sort of learners when they've been at home. I'm going to use it in a slightly different way. So I'm going to click here to generate a Meet link. I'm not going to make it visible to the students just yet because I want to sort of do a bit of preparation before they can join that Meet. We'll mention later, but there are some additional updates coming so that you've got greater controls over who can join Meets. So co-teachers can also get host control when they join the Meet. And there's also a new feature coming where students cannot join before the teachers have joined a Google Classroom Meet. So lots of new features there that we'll remind you about later.
Here's what I found.
So let's generate that link, and I'm just going to flick that switch back off so we can save that. So that link there is obviously what both ourselves as teachers and when we make it visible to students, we can open it up. And that's the Meet where we can collaborate and work together with our students. There you go. See me again. I'll just turn my camera off just in case that causes too many problems. However, one thing you might want to do is bring an outside expert in. One way to do that is, you see that Meet link up there? Every Meet has like this 10-digit code associated with it. So what I want to do is I want to invite an outside expert to our Meet when I bring the students in. To do that, I'm going to jump into Calendar. So I'm just going to open up a new tab, and I'm just going to go to Calendar here. And just make sure I'm in the account I want to be in. Okay. So one of the other new features that we mentioned last week, and we'll talk about again, is breakout rooms through Calendar. So just going to have a look at that as well. Let's go into next week. Let's find a convenient time And here we go. So we have got our Mars expert joining our class. So we can add that expert in. So if that expert has a Gmail account, or you could provide them with an account within your domain to join, they'll be able to join that. By default, the ability for external people who can't verify through a Gmail account or a domain account, their ability to join a meet is off. And obviously, it is very important that anyone joining a meet that involves students has to verify who they are. So that's the default. It is something you can change from the back end, but as Charlie will probably say, from a security and privacy point of view, having people verify who they are before they join meets is probably fairly high priority for schools.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you want to know who's coming in.
So what I've done here is I've got an account that's on our domain called Dr. Napa, who is our resident space expert, and I'm going to add them to this. Now, if I want them to go to the same meet, this is a bit of a tricky trick here, is you can actually, under the settings, you can adjust the host controls. So I know some people, particularly towards the beginning of the pandemic, it was you need to join a meet through Classroom because that's the safest way to do that with the students. Well, some of those safeguards are now available through calendar generated meets. So for example, I can turn off quick access to my meet generated through a calendar event, which just means that I need to admit anyone that's joining and gives me a little bit of a safeguard over who's joining our meet. That settings cog is also where you can create breakout rooms. So I can preset breakout rooms, and I can put students into breakout rooms, or colleagues, if you're doing professional development activities, I can put them into breakout rooms ahead of the meeting, which is quite useful. Okay.
And we did touch at the beginning, but just again to point out that breakout rooms are a feature of the teaching and learning upgrade, and also of the Education Plus edition.
Absolutely, yeah, it's worth reiterating that just so everyone's clear. Now, this is the generated meet link. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to edit that, and I'm actually going to replace it with the one from my Classroom generated meet. This will work in this case where I've added someone who's from within my domain. If you're adding someone from outside the domain, because of the safeguards with the Classroom generated meets, you might find that won't work quite as well. Okay, so I'll come back to that in a couple of moments.
Yeah, sure. So we've had some interesting questions in the Q&A doc, Ben. So we've covered the one about the sticker and Jamboard, and I really like your little solution there. So if you don't have the Android app or the other apps, you can actually recreate your own stickers in the web version. I thought it was a really neat idea. I love that. They're really clever. And we've had questions about and another question about rolling Chromebooks once you've got Chromebook licenses. So just popped the link to the help page on just that issue. So that's in there, folks, if you want to have a look at that. And there's a neat video that shows you how to enroll Chromebooks as well, if you're interested. Okay. So as well, just seeing if we've got any more questions coming in. There's a question about, is there a way to lock students into a slide and move them along with you? So the way that I would probably do that, if you're wanting to kind of lock students into a slide and move along with you, I'd probably share my screen and do it through Google Meet. So I'd meet with the students and then my slide deck and then move through my slide deck and do it that way. That's how I would do that with them. I think that would be a really neat way to do it, and that would work for you. Oh, I think Ben's back with us. Froze for a moment or two there, but I think he's going to be back with us in just a minute or two. Okay, let's see what else we have. What I could maybe do how are you getting on, Ben? Oh, I think Ben's maybe disappeared for just a moment or two, so I'll just cover that. So what Ben was going to go in and do a couple of more demonstrations. So he'll pick that up in a second or two when he gets back on the call. What I'll do, and maybe in the meantime, is I can share my screen and maybe talk about one or two of the updates that we're going to go into afterwards. So just to really give you maybe just an update on some of the things that are coming along with the various releases that are coming up for you. So let me just share my screen and take you through that. So that'll be just coming in a second. So maybe just talk a little bit about some of the updates that are coming through, and some of these will be available in Education Fundamentals. So what we're going to have is within Jamboard, you'll have track latest changes. So you'll be able to see changes within Jamboard and get that history, the same as you've got in in docs, sheets, slides. You've got in other applications, you'll have the same revision history will be available inside Jamboard, which is a great addition and really a really requested feature. People wanted to see where they were and what they were doing with Jamboard. So that's a great addition for us, which will be available. So as well as that, in terms of Classroom, and Ben's back with us. So Ben, I was just talk a little bit about the revision history in Jamboard and how that's a great addition. And I was just going to just mention the Google Classroom add-ons feature, which I think is a really great one coming for educators to use. Really, just because it's many of the key tools that we've used through lockdown, like Kahoot and Nearpod and such, they're going to be available embedded within Google Classroom. So you'll be able to set assignments and pull your content from those particular providers. And so what you've created in Kahoot, you've got a great quiz in there. You can just set that straight away inside Google Classroom. I don't know, Ben, if you want to say anything more about that at the moment.
No, I think it's going to be really exciting for educators to start bringing in those other resources from third-party tools just straight into Classroom. Obviously, a lot of educators will link various resources from Classroom, but now be much more integrated. So I think that's going to be a great addition. That's going to be sort of with you around that kind of autumn return to school time. So if you have got Kahoot and Nearpod resources, then that's going to be really, really useful. Cool.
Right.
So, I'm back for now, as things go. And I think what we were at was I was just about to start my meet. Now that I've got my expert invited, I've got my students ready to go. So what I would do is jump back into Classroom. And what I can do now is jump into the settings and make that link visible to the students, who can join me in that meet, and we can bring in our expert to have a look at that. So let me just scroll down, make it visible to the students. I'll save and we'll get into that now. So if you remember the Jamboard that I had now, let's just jump into this meet. And obviously what we'd see is the students start to filter into this meet with me. I've also got my host controls, so I can adjust, for example, quick access off. And for the start of the meet, I might decide that I don't want them to share their screens, and equally, I don't want them using the chat initially. So those features are all available if you're using Meet through Education Fundamentals. And what I'm going to add to that, though, is via the activities, so the square, circle, triangle icon, I'm just going to turn on Q&A. So if we've got our expert joining us, the Q&A feature is a nice way for the students to ask questions, and it also allows them to kind of upvote questions from their peers as well. So it might be kind of, can people live on Mars? Might be one of the questions that one of the students wants to ask. And once that's posted, you'll see a little thumbs up icon on the right where people can upvote it. So we know which questions to pose to the expert when they join. So I can keep an eye on the Q&A and obviously sort of monitor that as we go. The other thing that I'd quite like to do is bring in the whiteboarding aspect. So as well as being able to create a brand new Jamboard file, what I could also do is bring in, if I choose from Drive, the Jamboard file that we've already started working on in Classroom. So that Mars collaboration one, let's take that one. Let's open it up. And this allows you to have this available to the students throughout the meet as well. So as the expert is talking, as the questions are getting answered, they can continue to collaboratively add their thoughts and ideas together. So that's going to sit there and we can collaborate that on that at the same time. Once the expert's done, we can obviously thank them, wish them on their way. And then there's an opportunity for us to use one of the other upgraded features. So breakout rooms, polls, and Q&A are features that you get if you go with the Teaching and Learning upgrade or Education Plus. So if I jump into breakout rooms, what I might want to do at this point is set up some breakout rooms, split my class up into 3. And for example, based on what the expert's been talking about, I might want to send them off to talk about, well, one of the first challenges was getting to Mars, and we can have a breakout room talking about that. The second area we can have a look at is setting up on Mars. Like, how do you actually then, once you're there, start to live there? And probably most challenging is, how do you survive and thrive on Mars? What do you need to do in order to really get set up? And once I've got those rooms set up, I can then shuffle the students into 3 groups, or I can allocate them by dragging the student names in, and I can open up those rooms and get them into those breakouts. So those breakouts are going on now, but remember, they've still got access to the collaborative Jamboard. So what I can see, and you'll notice I've put in some additional slides. So for the group that's in the breakout room looking at getting to Mars, there's a space for them to collaborate. So I can, even if I'm not in the room with them, I can still get a sense of how they're getting on. Obviously, same with setting up a place to live, and then finally surviving and thriving. So we know that we've heard educators talk about wanting to see all the breakout rooms at the same time. Currently, you can go and join any of the breakout rooms you want, but you won't be able to see them all at the same time. So that collaborative Jamboard is maybe a way to have an oversight of what's going on and just see where you might need to sort of lend a bit of a hand along the way. So as that's going on, you can jump around the rooms, and once you're happy, let's close down that Jamboard and we can close the rooms and bring everyone back together. It gives them a 30-second countdown. Little tip, if you click on close rooms now, you can actually ignore that 30-second warning and just close down the breakout rooms, and everyone will come back into the main room.
Yeah, and that's a really neat just tip to remember. You can just shut it down quickly and get everyone back in. So great.
Teacher always has control.
Absolutely.
So just a reminder, you've got breakout rooms, polls, which can be set up ahead of time. So you can create some polls. Would you volunteer to go to Mars? You can set that up ahead of time, and you can post it whenever the time feels right during the meet call. So once you're ready, you can click on launch. So those 3 are all available through the upgraded Teaching and Learning Education Plus. The recording option is something that you have limited access to through Education Fundamentals, and you've got sort of unlimited recording options through the upgrades. And that also includes attendance reporting. So you'll get a little attendance report at the end of your meets if you've got the upgraded Teaching and Learning or Education Plus, and also a transcript of the chat as well. Okay, so we've had our collaboration with our class on Jamboard to find out what they know. We've joined an expert and added to our collaborative Jamboard a little bit more. And now it's time to jump back into the classroom and just sort of wrap that up with a group presentation task. But before I jump into that, the group presentation task, Charlie, I noticed there's a few bits on the chat. Is there anything that we need to pick up before I move into that next section?
Just looking there. There's some just seeing. I think we're okay at the moment. Yep.
Cool. Okay, so the third bit of our collaboration task, we looked at Jamboard, we looked at bringing experts in and collaborating on Meet. The final bit is I'd really love for those groups that were in breakout rooms in Meet to discuss the different aspects that we've talked about getting to Mars, surviving and thriving, and obviously setting up on Mars. So I have this fairly basic presentation deck that I want them to work on. So a title slide, a place for them to put in their team, and I want them to work in groups on this. So I'm just going to have a look at a way that you can assign group work in Classroom and sort of set that up so the right people get access to the right things. So back in Classroom, under classwork, once again, you'll see that I've got a draft assignment here. So it says, create a 10-minute group presentation to share with the class. We're going to use a rubric, tune back in for webinar number 4, where we'll spend a bit more time looking at rubrics and originality reports. A template deck has been provided for you to use, and you need to help the rest of your class understand your topic area. So I'll just show you how I've set this up. So that group presentation slide that you've just seen has been added via Google Drive. I'm going to make it so that everyone can edit. But on this occasion, rather than assigning to every single student, I'm going to assign this to the group of a particular group of students. So these might be the ones that I know were in the breakout room previously. So that's my group for the Getting to Mars group presentation. Let me just replace this here. So the carrot will become more obvious later, but if I just right click and go to emoji, I can see it's going to replace the word getting now. And let me just see if I can find something a bit more relevant to getting to Mars. There we go. That's obviously the one we need. Bear with me 1 second. Let me just jump out of that. It's coming up on my other screen, sorry. So that's a way you can add an emoji in. My computer's not helping me today.
Yeah, Ben, just as an aside, we've got a question from Peter, who was asking about how did you make your neat rocket?
Oh, I'm coming to that, yeah. So saving that one for the end, but just to give you a little bit of a heads up, I made that through something called Canva. So canva.com/education, and we'll put a link in for that as well. Hopefully you should have a bit of time. I've obviously waylaid myself along the way, but we should get a chance to quickly show you how you can create those as well as backgrounds for both slides and Jamboard and a plethora of other things too. There we go. My emoji's gone in, so we're going to get there on a bike. We've assigned it to 8 students, but I'm not going to click on assign yet. What I'm going to do is save that as a draft because that's for my first group. What I can now do, if I scroll up to the top, is if I go to create and reuse post, which is a really useful feature because you can dip into any other classroom that you're a teacher of and take posts out of that and reuse them. So I'm going to keep this box ticked. I want a copy of all of the resources. And here we go, the Getting to Mars presentation task. So let's click on reuse and let's just adapt that slightly for my second group who are going to look at living on Mars or setting up on Mars. So I can quickly replace that with setting up on Mars. And again, probably foolish, but I'm going to persist and try and put in another emoji and see if we can get something vaguely relevant. Here we go. I think I've got just the one. Construction work. There we go. So setting up on Mars. So pretty much the same, but obviously this time what I want to do is I want to go through and I want to assign that to a different group of students. So I can go through and select the rest of the students that need to be in group 2.
So Ben, that's a really good point there, because we've got a couple of questions about this. Both Rachel and Natasha were asking if you've pre-created those groups, or are you choosing just those pupils that will be in those groups that you're going to have as a teacher?
Yeah, so at the moment, there's no way to pre-create groups in Classroom. I know it's a feature that lots of people would like to see. So what I'm doing is I am cherry picking the students I want to go into those groups. For any additional features for Classroom you'd like to see, strongly encourage you to head to the question mark in the bottom left of Classroom and click on Request Feature. The Google Classroom team are renowned across the Google organization for being one of the best teams for responding to feedback. They read every single bit and they aggregate the ones that educators are asking for. And just to reassure you, if you all asked for a unicorn theme, you wouldn't necessarily see that, because they do have there are a lot of former teachers in the Google Classroom team, so they do have a sense of what is pedagogically valid and what isn't as well.
But I can absolutely back that up, Ben. They absolutely read all those comments that you put in, folks. So do go there and make your, request your features that you're looking for, because I've done that in the past, and then I met the team at a particular event, and sure enough, they'd read my comments and stuff. So really great. So really it does happen.
And you also get a little email when your feature gets rolled out, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't bore you with doing that for a third time for the third group, but the reason I haven't published that is if I published and assigned that task before reusing, that file would already be accessible to them. But by ticking that box in the reuse task, it means that this group and this group have a separate copy of that presentation deck, but they can all work on it together. So once I assign it, only the students in this group will be able to edit this particular copy of the presentation deck. And if I assign that, they can now jump in and start working together on their presentation deck. And obviously one of the great things is we've all had those lessons where you've asked for presentations and some students bring it on a memory stick and some send it to you as Keynote and some send it in a completely random way and some sent it and it never appeared. So this way you've got access to their presentation deck from the very beginning, and you can see how it's progressing and obviously give them some advice, some feedback and a nudge to make sure they're ready for presentation day as well. So there's a kind of a third collaborative way of not just using slides, but assigning that through Classroom so groups get their own set of slides as well. Okay, I promised a quick look at Canva. I'll try and do that as quickly as possible. So canva.com/education. If we haven't put that link out, we'll throw that into the comments as well. What it allows you to do as an educator is take all of these amazing templates. And here's one, again, I made earlier for the Jamboard. So I've just used a presentation template and I've taken some of the animated elements that you can get. So you go to elements, you can search for particular things and you can filter them out just so you get animated ones. And once you've put your animated items into this space, you can then download that as a GIF. Other options are available as well, but if I download it as a GIF, that's what I have added in the back of both the Jamboard and into the slides. So I've just taken page 1, downloaded that as a GIF, and then through Jamboard, you can use the option to change the background. And obviously you can also add that as a background or add it to the theme in your Google Slides as well, so that you get that animated background, but without the ability for the students to kind of mess around with it or move anything around you don't want them to. So that's the process there of set background. And there'll be an option here where you can add your own image. There we go. So I think I just about got there in time. I know Charlie started having a look at some of the new updates. So let's just sort of jump back in and see if we can pick up where we left off. Actually, perfect. So obviously I've touched on a few of the updates around Meet and Classroom and the controls that you can have over those things. So let's just quickly look at any of the updates that we maybe need to mention a little bit more. And we can make sure that you're all sort of comfortable with the options for getting collaborative. So I know that Charlie already mentioned revision history in Jamboard, bringing it in line with docs and sheets and slides. And we also talked about the add-ons in Classroom, so allowing you later on this year to bring in all of those extra resources you already have and link them through Classroom really seamlessly. We quickly showed breakout rooms in Calendar, so that ability to pre-populate your breakout rooms using the settings cog when you create a calendar event. Just a reminder, that's something that you would only see if you've got the Teaching and Learning upgrade or you've signed up for Education Plus. Rich text formatting you saw in a lot of my assignments, and something that's coming to Education Fundamentals is new admin controls, and that's where we talked about controlling who can join your meetings, which your users can join, and there's also meeting logs as well. And I know, Charlie, that's something that you'll be talking about in some of the upcoming ones, but a really key feature for making sure the right people are in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. So your admins will be able to see who was in Google Meet and when, and you'll be able to really just take the right action to ensure that young people are being the correct kind of digital citizens that we want them to be.
Absolutely. So that one is a freely available feature, and just reiterates that although there are the paid features, Google is going to continue to update features on Education Fundamentals in line with the features that teachers need to make sure that they can do what they want to do. Again, Education Fundamentals, the free edition, there's also that new Meet and Classroom interfaces so that only students and teachers in the class can join by default. You can have multiple moderators and students can't get in before the teachers. So even though we are out of that distance learning mode, the Meet team are continuing to listen to educators and make sure that Meet experience and Classroom experience is exactly what you would expect. Okay, so I think we need to just do a quick check of any questions. I can see that it looks like the Canva GIFs have gone down reasonably well, which is obviously greatly appreciated. We encourage you again, if you're kind of looking at any of those upgraded features, to reach out to your partners. Seems like quite an active Q&A doc, I notice. So is there a way to lock students into a slide and then move them along with you? So actually, Peter, I'd probably mention, if you saw on add-ons, there was integration with Nearpod. So Nearpod and Pear Deck are examples of third-party tools that provide that kind of ability for you to lock students into a slide as you present. And you'll see that they're obviously, Nearpod is one of those examples that's going to be a Classroom add-on. So you can build the presentations through slides and into Nearpod and have that additional control as well. There isn't necessarily a way to do that with Google Slides if you're sharing those with the students, other than obviously presenting and they've got to look through the Meet, for example, or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I suggested, Ben. It's the same thing, just present through Meet, and then your students can watch in through your Meet as you go through, and that keeps them locked into that slide as well. Yeah.
So
there's a question,
Natasha. After you.
No, after you were going to talk about Natasha's question.
Yes. So will breakout rooms and waiting rooms be a feature added to the free Google for Education packages? At this point, I'm not entirely sure where, like, the timeline for any of that. So I'd say keep an eye on the Google for Education blog that comes out. If you're not already signed up to that, then the feedback form that we've shared throughout this webinar, if you go through the feedback form, there's an option to sign up for the Google for Education updates in the blog, and you can find out about kind of updates coming to Google Workspace that way, if that's a useful way to keep in touch with what's coming up.
And there's another one there about which Chrome extensions would you recommend for integrating with Classroom? I think the App Hub's a good place to go for Chrome extensions in general. And there's many different extensions there that you can use. In terms of Classroom integration, Ben, or using with Classroom?
I mean, I noticed that Moat and Loom and maybe Screencastify is one to add to that list in terms of providing feedback. So Moat, Screencastify, Loom are great ways to provide verbal video feedback for students in addition to the comment bank in Classroom. So that's a really nice way to do it. But yeah, would strongly recommend having a look at those ones that have already been added in. But Chromebook App Hub is definitely the place to go to look at everything that plays really nicely with Google Workspace for Education, both Chromebooks and obviously through things like Classroom.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll continue to have a look in that Q&A doc if you want to add anything beyond today's webinar. Just a reminder about the upcoming webinars. So we're now 2 into a 6 webinar series. Next week, Charlie's going to be taking the lead when we look at security features that every admin needs to know. And that will also give us a chance to drill in a little bit more into Education Standard and Plus security features that add on top of the security features of Education Fundamentals. And then we've got a teaching and learning focused one with a more specific focus on Classroom, managing devices through the admin console. And then the final webinar is focused on Google Workspace beyond remote learning. And obviously for many of you who've kind of really got your teeth into Google for Education over the last 12 months, just talking about what that looks like as you move forward, hopefully without the return to lockdowns and distance learning and what that can look like in schools. And obviously, like Charlie up in Aberdeen, you've been using Google for Education for a number of years now. So you've seen exactly what that can look like pre-pandemic as well as how it can look post.
Yeah, and I think digital is a huge part of the work we'll be doing going forward. And I think a great many educators are in that position now that you've kind of taken a big leap forward during this period of working from home or remote learning. And so those next steps are really just continuing that journey and continuing that momentum. And I think there's great things ahead in terms of digital and education. It's a really exciting time.
Here. And I suppose that leaves us with then to sort of wrap up with asking you if you can let us know how we got on. I appreciate I had some technical challenges my end, but hopefully that didn't detract too much from the experience. But please let us know your feedback. And that's also an opportunity. If you're not currently working with a partner, you can fill in that feedback form and be put in touch with a partner who can talk to you about getting the paid upgrades if you're interested in any of those features that you've seen today. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate your time again. It's been a very busy year for teachers. The fact that we keep on seeing educators reaching out for continuing professional development is obviously shows the type of committed professionals that you all are. So thank you for your efforts. Wish you a very good evening. And thank you, Francis. Yeah, we'll wish you a good evening and hopefully see you next week for the rest of these webinars. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks, Charlie.
Great. Thanks, everybody.